Today on Sax Therapy, a simple harmonic tool that will immediately jazzify your lines, Cannonball's best album and no it's not something else, how to write a proper booking email, and decorated MMA fighter and wrestling champ Ben Askren gives advice about learning music theory. All of that and more today on Sax Therapy. Do you want your hands to sound more like this? Or this? Or that? There is a tool that Bebop era players used to utilize a lot, and I just don't see a lot of people doing nowadays, and not a lot of people teach it. And it's really easy to do, and I feel like it can add a little bit to any player's playing. We have two ways of looking at it, and they're both completely valid. One way is substitution / superimposing harmony, and the other way is the modal way. You choose whichever way you want to think about it. Both have advantages and disadvantages. Now, if we look at substitutions, we have a 2-5-1 in G. Instead of looking at 2-5-1, we're going to replace either the 5 or the 2-5. We're going to do 4 minor 1. So in the first example and the last example, I'm thinking about 2, 4 minor 1, and then in the second example, it's 4 instead of the 2, 4 minor on the 5 and 1. So in those lines, I'm still playing like I would play normally on a bebop. On a bebop tune, I have a lot of chromatic passing tones. I have enclosures around sometimes chord tones, sometimes around tensions. But the important part is that I get to those interesting notes on the 5. So the thing that gives us the sound here, the interesting sound and the voice leading that we like, is going from basically having E, because it's the 4 is C, so having E, to C minor, having E flat. And then we're playing around the chords, which means we're playing around basically C major 7 to C minor major 7 or C minor 6, and then we resolve nicely into the 1. If we look at the tensions that we get, we're getting the flat 9, we're getting the 6, we're getting the 5, we're touching the 4, which is the avoid note, but in this context, because we're going and playing triads or playing the 7 because it actually sounds good, and because of the voice leading, and then they all resolve really nicely to chord tones of the G. The other way to look at it is to look on it modally. So modally what we're doing, and that's what I did in the third example, we're using Mixolydian flat 9. Mixolydian flat 9 is a very interesting mode. It comes out of the harmonic major scale, which we have a couple of modes there which we actually use quite a bit, even though most people don't understand where it comes from. If you want those licks, by the way, they're going to be available for free on Patreon. I'm going to tell you guys something embarrassing. I didn't used to like Cannonball utterly growing up. And I think one of the main reasons was that the most famous Cannonball Adderley albums are just not the best feature of his playing. I think the two most famous Cannonball Adderley, like if you say Cannonball Adderley to most jazz musicians, they think about two albums, Kind of Blue and something else. Kind of Blue is pretty obvious, because it's an amazing album and it's great, but I think Cannonball's playing doesn't shine through completely in this album, and he's gonna get upstaged by the other players. I don't think the style of jazz is really his forte. And then something else, I'm not sure why it became so famous compared to the other albums, but at least for my taste, the album before that and the album after that are much better. The album before that is Sophisticated Swing, which also came out in 1957, just as something else did. And then the album after that is Cannonball Sharpshooters, came out in 58. Both of them are with his quintet, and both albums are amazing. It's actually hard for me to pick a favorite between those two. I don't know, maybe it's because Miles was on the other one, and it's kind of like an all-star marketing. You know, a lot of times people try to market it that way, like, oh, you get this bassist that's famous or this trumpet player that's famous. The albums were just his quintet, even though everybody there is a killer. It has Sam Jones on bass and Jimmy Cobb on drums, which are both killers. I love Jimmy Cobb, talking about underrated. And we're gonna listen to a song from the album 57, Sophisticated Swing. We're gonna listen to Miss Jackie's Delight, which is a blues in F. It doesn't just feature Cannonball, I think it also features the rhythm section. By the way, it has Junior Mance on piano and Nat Adderley's brother on cornet. That's enough talking, let's listen to some music. All right, we started just before the saxophone solo. I want you guys to listen, we were talking about Jimmy Cobb, the roll that he does, the feel, the roll to the... It's like kind of swampy feel, and the way he articulates the notes, it kind of like pushes them up. Same thing. Wow. Wow. It's giving them a lot of character. Cannonball Trail. It's one of my favorite things that he does. It every time he does it, it's just amazing and awesome. Again, we have to listen to this again. Listen to the dynamics. Listen to the dynamics in his lines too. That's another thing that he does, because he doesn't do just the swampy feel of jazz. He also does like this kind of like bouncy, happy kind of character. Ba. How heavy does it feel? And we're barely playing. Like Sam Jones and Jimmy Cole barely playing. And it's like it feels so heavy. That's something that I wish players today would understand. Every jazz school band that you're going to go to listen to, especially college, you have a college band, the drummers and the bass players play a bajillion times more than those people would ever imagine playing. And that's one of the reasons why those people sound so good. Because we listen to music from the bottom up. And as important saxophone is, people listen to the bass and drums first and to the groove first. It's not like you can't make it work, but if there is a solid, nice groove on the bottom, like a simple groove that's been held and is tight on the bottom, it's like whatever you play is going to have way more meaning. So something to think about, and check out the rest of the album and also Sharpshooters. Today I'm going to teach you how to write a booking email. It's super important. And the main reason why it's super important to learn how to write a booking email, other than the fact you want to have shows, is that even if you have a shitty coffee shop in the middle of nowhere that has shows for nobody, that pays no money, you're going to have 10 billion musicians trying to get that gig. And while back in the day, you would have to have an agent or you would have to call a place or even walk there physically, today you can just send an email. So it makes it super easy. And those people are flooded with booking requests. And that's why being a booking agent for a venue is a great job for a narcissist or a predator, which we met a few of both. I actually sold our old Marvin van to a guy, and very short after he ended up in prison because he was a predator. Anyway, fun story. How to write an email. So you don't have to stand out. We're booking a ton of shows anyway, right? You don't have to have the best, most bombastic email. It can help if it's backed up by truth, but honestly, all you need to do is be concise, quick, and to the point. So first thing you want to do is the headline. When I book my band Marvin, I write Marvin at, and then the name of the venue. The reason it's important is A, they know it's for booking. B, they can find it easily if they need it. And C, they don't feel like you're spamming the same email to a million venues. Now, you definitely should spam the same email to 1,000,000 venues. I actually, when we just started, I used to just, with my list, I just used to copy all the emails and just BCC them, and people would hate it. And I understand why. And I stopped it. It's not good practice. I wouldn't do it anyway. I wouldn't do it again. But when you do that, people think that you specifically looked for a venue, and then it might be a good fit. So we're going to check out the email. All right. So band at name of venue. If you know the date, you can put the date down at the header too, but usually you don't really know the exact date that you want. Now, for the email itself, don't use adjectives. Nobody cares what you think about your band. Nobody cares that you think you have a great, bombastic, fantastic, Mr. Bombastic, Mr. Fantastic. What's Shaggy? Anyway, nobody cares about it. It doesn't matter. What does matter? So the first line, I always put the date that I'm looking for, right? If you want to put the day of the week, that's even better. Usually it's a few days. Like I would say, hello, I would love you to consider Marvin for January 13th, 14th, and 15th. And then in parentheses, maybe I'll put the days of the week. I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Because I just booked it. We're going to Texas. Oh, by the way, before my wife kills me. All the stuff that I talk about music business, I do have a music business book out that you can find on the Marvin website or the Marvin Bandcamp. And I think it's a really good book. And people really liked it. I think that's how Paul Simon got famous. I think he read my book and went back in time and started a career. Anyway, moving on. First line, date, days of the week. All right, second line, this one is going to be a paragraph. You want to tell them a little bit about your band, everything that's relevant to the show that you're booking. So if you're booking a venue, or a bar, I guess. You want to make sure that you're saying the style of music that you're playing, and if there are famous bands that are really in your vein, like if you're a unique mix between Rage Against the Machine and Red Hot Chili Peppers, then put it in, right? Because then they have context to put you in, and they can maybe think about if you would fit and where you would fit in the venue. So you put that in, and then you put if you play original music, covers, or mix of covers. Now, that's really important, especially if you're playing bars, because some bars will only have original music because they have this agreement with ASCAP. And side note, we played two venues, maybe more than two, but I know of two venues. One of them in Shenandoah, Iowa, the place called The Depot. We actually wrote a song called The Depot. It's about this place. And the owner converts engines to biodiesel. And he had a fleet on his property of biodiesel heavy machinery. And you need oil from deep fires, and he was sick of going around and collecting them. So he basically opened a restaurant and a venue just so he can have the oil for his biodiesel engines. Again, it's a tiny place. One guy played a cover of Bob Dylan, and there was a guy from ASCAP there, and they gave him $10,000 or $20,000 fine, and he no longer had live music afterwards because it was like, I'm only doing it for basically for fun and for the oil. I don't need live music. So, that's ASCAP for you. Basically, same thing happened in Richland, Washington, which is in eastern part of the state. In a tiny place, ASCAP saw somebody playing a cover and just $20,000. And it's amazing because Spotify somehow is played in every venue now and every coffee shop with a personal account. And somehow ASCAP doesn't touch that, and somehow that's fine. That just shows you how much Spotify and the music business is crooked and now we're all connected. We'll talk about that a lot throughout this show. So not this specific episode, but throughout the show. Anyway, let's go back to the booking email. So say if you play original music, say you play covers. If it's a bar, you want to say how much you have of everything, like how much can you play. So you can be like, I have 3 hours of original or 3 hours of covers. Usually we do a mix, but can do either depending on the vibe of the show. Right, that's if it's a bar. If it's a venue, then just basically say what you play. I would say that if you're trying to book a cover show, you should have a link to all the cover songs that you're playing. Right, original music, you don't really need all your playlist, but covers, you should have them, because then you can really see if it fits. And in the same paragraph, you also want to add everything that is related to the show you're trying to book. So your social media following. If you don't have it, you don't have to say anything. But your social media following, you can talk about if you have some connections in town, like your sister goes to the sorority or something, or you used to go to college there and still have a lot of friends in town, something that can give them an estimate of like why you would bring some people out assuming that your band is not super famous or well-known. And if your band is more well-known, just usually social media is what they judge by. Whatever you got, you can include it. Facebook, Insta, TikTok, Spotify, whatever has numbers that are not horrible. Like if you have 5 monthly listeners on Spotify, then don't send it. Just ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. All right, that was the second paragraph. Next, you want to give links. We don't need 1,000 songs. We're going to listen to 10 seconds of each song. Give them 2 or 3 songs max that kind of represent your show. It's not an album and it's not an EP. So you don't need a slow song if you have 1 slow song every 5 songs. The most important thing when you choose what music you're giving them is A, the sound quality. It has to sound okay. And B, video is better. The sound quality, it has to sound okay, and video is better. If you only have a phone recording, it's also fine, but it can't be completely clipping all over the place. And when you want to have something that they can understand what's going on with the band and that the band is decent, the first 10 seconds. Like I like to use for booking either juke joint or African chapter. The reason is both songs start basically on it. African chapter starts with a really fast line in unison, which is basically what Marvin is. And the other song, juke joint, is the saxophone lines, it has a groovy part underneath. You can understand what's going on. And you don't have to listen to an 8-minute song, which 99.999% of bookers are not going to do. So you did that, give all the links that you want to give, website, schedule, and then the last little tip that I give is say, please let me know either way. Now, the reason why you want to know either way is that a no is not a wall, a no is a negotiation. And if somebody says no to you, a lot of times it's because the date is not available, or they don't have shows on Tuesdays, or the venue is out of commission for 2 months. So I always say, please let me know either way. Thank you. And then again, my name and phone number.
Put something about how club hopping is dumb. Yes, I think this is stupid. But one of the biggest things that parents don't understand about club hopping and so many different coaches is the ability of an athlete to synthesize different information or differing information. Most of the time gets kids really confused because they don't have one system. They have a hesitation, right? And then especially with the younger kids, if you don't really put it together for them, man, they're all over the place.
That was Ben Askren. He was kind of washed up when he was traded to the UFC for Demetrius Johnson from Mighty Mouse. But he was a complete beast. And he's also from Wisconsin, which is where I live. How does it pretend to learning music theory? I'll explain. People think about music theory as if it's a scientific theory, like something that you can prove right or wrong, which is in fact incorrect. What music theory actually is a language. If a language takes the world and divides it into usable functions, like a chair is something that you sit on, a pen is something that you write with that has ink, then music theory takes the world of sound and divides that. And different people have different ways of dividing it. The metaphor that I came up with that I think explains it best is a library. Let's say you have 10,000 books. There are infinite amount of ways to arrange them. You can arrange them by year over list. You can arrange them by length. You can arrange them by number of words. You can arrange them by weight. You can arrange them by author first name, author's last name. You can arrange them by title. You can arrange them by subject. There are infinite ways to arrange those books. And depending on what you need, you would arrange it in a different way. So if somebody comes to you and asks for all the books that were released between 1962 and 1963, and you arrange them by weight, it's not gonna really help you. And that's the same thing with music. A lot of systems that people teach online might be great for what they're doing, but it's not gonna be relevant for you or for most people, especially if you're not playing exactly the same style as they do or the same way that they do. The problem that Ben was talking about, Ben Askren, was that people try to take a little bit of each system and it doesn't gel into a cohesive way of thinking and a cohesive, useful, functional way of being. And it's true in wrestling and it's also true in music. If we take the library example, you can't organize 3 of your books by weight and 3 of your books by author and then 4 of your books by year being published. and then 5 ebooks by subject. It's just gonna be information that doesn't gel into anything cohesive. Now the truth is that once you get really good at wrestling or at music, then you can get more from other people's perspective, because you have such a big, and that's where the library maybe analogy falls, that you have such a deep understanding of one way of doing things that you can relate the way that other people arrange the same information to yourself, and you can extract some stuff out of it. So even the example that I gave before of the licks, let's say you're more of a motor player, like, I grew up, and I would think about it as Mixolydian flat 9, I can now look at the substitutions and add it to my playing, because I already have so much stuff in my own system that I learned in, right? So it's very easy for me to adapt stuff from other systems. But until you have a complete understanding of one way of doing things, it's just not a great idea to club hop, as Ben put it, or YouTube hop, I guess, the way I put it. But since this channel is so new, just stay here. If you reach it, just stay here. This is the place. This is the place to stay. And hopefully I'll see you next week. I don't know if I could do it because of Thanksgiving. If I'm not seeing you next week, then happy Thanksgiving. And then I will see you the week after. And good luck, Just Kittens.